Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and this amazing video. I'm Aditya. In this video, we are going to see an interesting concept which is setup tag or setup script in Vue 3.2 and above. So this is a new feature in Vue 3.2. So first, before we begin, I want to thank a person who suggested this in the comment section of my previous video of creating a custom input in Vue 3. So thank you to the person for suggesting this. And if you guys would like to see or you have certain suggestions for me to make video on, so please feel free to put it in the comment section. I will definitely try to make a video on it. So that being said, let's begin with this. So we have a custom input over here. The label is not good, so let's make it custom input message, something like this. And here we have let's make it text. I haven't changed a lot. So here we have a normal text. Now we are good to go. So here we have a text input, which we type some message. It displays here, simple, nothing different. So if you see, we are using a composition API, and now we will take it a step forward by making it as a setup tag. So what's the use of it? Why do we need this? And so on and so on. So let's go to the documentation first. Let's understand what it is. So it is nothing but a compile time syntactic sugar for composition API inside a single file components. This means that whatever code you are writing here, this setup script tag will make your life super simple by reducing lots of lines. Well, there are just few lines, but from here, some lines, assuming that this is a big chunk of code, reducing lots of boilerplate and removing lots of lines from your code and making it super simple. Okay, so let's see how to use it. So all we have to do here is go to our app here, just put here setup, save it. It will give an error. That's fine. Then we have to just remove this export default, remove this component, remove this setup function, and remove this. Take it over here, save it. We are good to go. You see, like just 3 lines of code in our script tag for just the small, maybe you could say component, or maybe it's just some small things. Or even if this was a big line of code, I'm pretty much sure like lots of lines would have been deleted by now. But the idea behind this is it makes your code more performance efficient by making it something like compiling it into a render function without an intermediate proxy. And also it makes it more clear and easy to understand. Plus it is good for TypeScripts as well. Like we are using TypeScripts, it would be easy at that time. So now, as you could see, like we have a component over here, we are importing it. Can we do a define async component? Let's give it a try. So let's do it here, define async components in case if you want to lazy load the component. So I'm going to say const input. This is my component, which will have a define async component taking an import function inside it. This import function is nothing but we'll take a path of our component. So we'll just give a path. So we'll just remove it, give a path, and to make it more better, we will give a webpack chunk name in comment, so that when webpack will compile this file, it knows that it has to give it a name that we provided over here. So webpack chunk name, this is very useful to avoid some random file being, or random inputs, not random inputs, but more like random compilation of those 0.js or something like that. So we just give it a name, so it would be compiled as input.js when it will be compiled. Remove this line from here, go back over here, and we are good to go. Everything works as it is without any problem. So that's one thing. Now next thing is, let's see if we can use computed property. So if I get here computed, and let's say if this was message length, msg length, let's put a const over here. Let's do msg length equal to computed, and then let's put it like a simple computed property, which is msg.value.length. Perfect. Everything is good and working fine. If you notice, whatever we have written in this script setup tag, everything is usable here. So in simple words, if you want to use something in your template, all you have to do is just write it over here and do not have to worry about it, returning it or including it somewhere and whatnot. So I can do the same thing for functions. So if I do it as a function, let's say this was a function which just displays our message. So display message function, or display just the name to the button. And here I can just write the function simply like this, and this will just alert our msg.value. Let's see how it works. Simple. So you can also make a sync request. So if we go over here and go all the way down to a sync request over here, well, in this case, generally, if you have an async request straight away over here, you have to have an async function. But in this case, you don't need to do that. So all we have to do here is to do something like const, maybe post, as it's said over here, await, and a fetch request or Axios, whichever you use, whichever you prefer, going to a URL and the data. Like simple, and it's a get request, so we don't need the data. It will be just then whatever it comes, then as a promise and the response of it .json. So it is like simply using any fetch request or any Axios request and storing it in the variable and just using it wherever you like it. So that's for async request. And now let's see how to use props. If we go back all the way up over here, actually I should go sequentially so that it's way easier to understand. Okay, let's go sequentially from now on. So we saw the reactivity with ref, so that's great. You can also have the reactive object and make it as a reactive object. So components, we saw that, like just import it normally or lazy load it, doesn't matter. And what else? Dynamic imports, you could do the same thing, like this input can, so now this can become a component, and this will become our input. So if we see this, go back over here, it works exactly the same without any difference. So this, you could have like a dynamic components like this, so that's fine. Let's make it back again input, and we have something known as namespace components as well, so we could do that. So I guess this is somewhat similar to React. In React also you can have namespace children, and then you could do that, so that's great. This one, define props and define emits. So this is what we are interested currently. And here what I'm going to do, so let's say here we are taking this model value as a props and this as an event which we are emitting. So that's great. Now let's convert it into this fashion and let's use it. But one thing to consider here is that certain properties like inherit attributes, so this inherit attributes is just to make sure that whatever we bind we do, it goes straight to the element when we pass it to over here. So when I pass type text here, instead of going to the div, it goes to our input because we're there, we want to make it to go. So certain properties like this inherit attributes or named export, you cannot have it in your script setup tag. But however, you can have a normal script tag. Let's remove this, or let's keep it. We need to copy paste it. So you can have a normal script tag, and all with that you have a script with setup tag. I'm not sure VS Code has an option for that. Okay, let's type it manually. Not a problem. So here you have a setup tag. Script, and then all you have to do is, so for props I have to do const props. I can take any variable, doesn't matter, but just to keep consistency in the name, I will take props. Then define props, it's going to be a function or a macro, you could say, which will take our props, which would be simply this thing. Put it over here. We don't need this. Set a function, no require, and we are good to go. So if we save this, we go back over here, it will throw lots of errors saying that define props is not defined, props is not defined. Now, as it says here, you don't have to import this define props. okay, because it will be compiled runtime. But sometime, well, there are always problems and you never know what can happen. As a safer side, you always, or you could import it, not always, but you could import it from this. So you could say define props from Vue. So we solved the one error. Now how to use this props? Well, here instead of model value, we say props.model value, and instead of label, we say props.label. And there we go. Everything remains as it is, nothing changes. Okay. Now let's see how to emit the event. Now you can obviously emit with $emit. There's no harm in that. But what if you want to emit the event from your setup script tag or from some function or something like that? So let's do that. So let's assume we are emitting this event from a function. So you just copy from here and let's say pass message. That's the name of our function, or pass input. You could give any name, doesn't matter. Now let's first we will have our emit. So const emits. And here we will have define emit. Define emit. Yes. So it didn't import it. No worries. We will import for us. So define emit. And here we will pass the name of the emit that we want to, like, as you could see, like it takes an array. So here our name of the emit was update model value. And then to use this, let's create our function first. Function pass message. Inside this, it is going to take an event, because by default when you put any or how can I say this trigger, or whenever there is an event like input click, they pass an event handler as well, or the event object. So we will name it as E for now, and let's paste our code. So we didn't have our code, so let's do it ourselves. So emits, inside this we have this update model value, as the name suggests, update model value, and what we want to update, so e.target.value. Okay, so that's done. Now let's go over here, refresh, let's see, and everything works perfectly as it is, nothing changes. So this is how you could have the emits, or events being emitted from the function. You have defineProps. Now there is another thing, which is defineExpose. So sometimes you might want to expose certain variables, because in this script setup tag, most of the variables are actually like all the variables or all the things are closed by default, as it says over here. So if you want to make it exposed to the parent, then you just use defineExpose. Okay, so in this case we want to expose these two properties. Here we don't need to do that, because we don't have any template ref over here. But in case if we want to have it with a template refs, then in that case we could just have these things. Okay, so this is going well so far. Right, now we have use slots and attributes. So when it says define expose in the parent, so this means as home is the parent of input. So if we want to pass something from input to home, we can have define expose, and then we can have this in our input, in our home. Okay, so next we need to use our use slots and use attributes. So let's first see the use attributes. Now here, if you see, we are passing an attribute. So these two are props, and this is the attribute. So type text with normal input type text attribute. This we are binding it over here. So this is one way to do it, very straightforward. But suppose if you want to do it in a setup tag, and if you don't want this thing, then what you could do is you can import something known as use attributes or use address. And then here you could just say const address equal to use address, and no need to pass anything inside this. And let's console this to see what we get. Console.log address. Let's go back over here. Let's go to console. If you see that we have a proxy object or an object over here, if we open this, it has type text. So here, if I go over here currently, so we have here type text. Okay, now I can also do it the other way around. I could say bind this type with our attrs.type. Okay, so if we save this, And if we go back over here, let's see if we get it. Yes, the type text is still there. Doesn't matter. So this is how you could bind it, or this is how you could use the attributes in your component. It's same with slots. So suppose this label was a slot. So let's take it off and let's make it as a name slot so we can see it. So slot, and give it a name of label slot. Let's do small label slot. And in our home, let's remove this and let's pass that label slot over here. And let's give this label thing over here. Now to make it work, we have to wrap it in a template because it's a named slot, a template. And you could do vslot name of the slot, or you could do hashtag name of the slot. It was label slot, and here we will remove that for template. Put this label tag inside that. Remove the for, save it here as well, and we get everything here as it is. Nothing changed. Now, how to get this slot properties or slot in general? So here we have another thing known as use slots. So use slot, and let's remove this, and let's do const slots. You could any variable, doesn't matter. Again, use slots, and then let's do console.log slot. Okay, let's save this, let's refresh this, and let's try to bring this up. And here you will see that we have that label slot over here. So if we expand this, let's go inside this, you have the label slots and all the properties of that label slot or that slot, whatever it is. So then if you want to use it anyhow, you could use it. But personally, I don't see any, like as it says here as well, that these two are the properties that you will be rarely using it. And because you have vbind attributes to do the job done, you have slot variable to do, slot component to do the job done, and even if you want the context of the slot, then well, I'm not sure how likely it is that you need that frequently. Mostly you need it like rarely, maybe 1 or 2 components, but it's something that it's good to know. So we saw the usage along the script tag as well over here, and so async wait, we saw that defineProps, define emits for TypeScript. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So yep, so that's all for this video. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you feel this video is worth sharing, share with your network, please. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. Also, I will include the link to my Udemy course for Vue in the description. Please check that as well. And last but not the least, but if you have any suggestion for me for the next video or videos down the line, please put it in the comment section. I will be very happy to work on that. So thanks again. Till the next time. Goodbye.